Well, g'day and welcome to another Carnage House production. I'm here with a familiar face. If you've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, any social media, probably would have seen him. I would say he's probably our most famous guest, possibly. We've got Tom Waterhouse here. Tom, how are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, pleasure. Thanks for being here. Obviously, your name and kind of, I guess, Waterhouse is synonymous with racing and gambling in Australia. Can you give us a little bit of background about yourself in terms of how you got into racing? I guess, were you passionate about? Is it something you've always wanted to do?
No, I was a kid, didn't like racing at all. Parents would always talk about racing and it would drive my sister and myself crazy. We're just like, stop talking about horses all the time. And then I used to work for my mum at the stables every Sunday from about the age of 12 till 18, and at least a week every holiday, getting up at, when she gets up at 2:30 or whatever in the morning and going to the track. And I was like, oh, this is tough. And so, yeah, I was just at uni, and my dad said to me one day, look, do you want to work for me at the races? And I was like, oh, okay. And I went out there, and I just, from that minute, I was just loved it. And from that moment on, I was basically hooked in being obsessed about racing and betting and the whole industry. And yeah, it was really just the theatre of the betting ring. There was so much excitement and large bets and this sort of battle between bookies and punters, and yeah, it was great.
You mentioned the battle between, I guess, bookies and punters, and for me it's kind of a polarising debate. Typically, Australian culture, we love the Melbourne Cup, we love racing, we love seeing punters get up, but we don't really like seeing bookies get up. We don't really like to see the other side of the coin. Do you feel like that's fair, or do you think that there's kind of a overtly negative perception which needs to be rectified with bookies?
Oh, I think, well, the thing with bookies taking bets on sport and racing is it's all probability. You know, it's not like a casino game where there's a specific house edge against you. And that is what makes betting on racing and sport so interesting, because the bookies have an edge in that they have a few percent in their favour, but they actually don't know what the true chance of a team winning or a horse winning. And that's that mental battle of the punter doing the form and the analysis of trying to find where the bookies are priced incorrectly, and trying to beat that bookie. And so it's a real battle, and yeah, throughout time it's possible to beat the bookies. You see some of the richest people in Australia are running the biggest syndicates in the world, and Australia's been an amazing place in that gambling and betting on horses is common. You know, everyone knows about the Melbourne Cup and betting, and the best punters in the world are Australian. You know, if you look at the biggest syndicates in the world, Australia leads the way, and that's what makes it so interesting. Casino games I don't find as interesting because, yeah, you might get the thrill of winning, but that house edge, unless you can count cards or you've got some sort of other edge, to me it's not as interesting.
You mentioned the probability of it. For people who don't really know a lot about horse racing, or don't really know about kind of sports gambling in general, where do you actually, or how do you actually come up with the odds for the races?
Well, when a bookie sets the odds, he's going, well, I believe based on the past performance of a team or past performance of a horse running, I think the chances of it winning are this. Yeah. And what they do is they build into their market that they've got some extra percentage. So a market, if it was even for punter and bookie, would add up to 100%. Yeah. A punter has an edge if it's less than 100%. But a bookie puts in a lot extra percentage, so he makes the odds a lot shorter on all these different runners or teams. But he doesn't know. It's opinion. And the weight of money changes the odds through, and not only the weight of money, but the weight of smart money changes the odds. And that's why you have the ability for punters to be winning long term. If a punter hasn't done his homework or found an edge, and he just bets at the bookies price all the time and doesn't find where he has a mistake, the punter's going to lose a lot of money. You know, they're not going to win at it, but that's what makes it such an interesting proposition, because you can do a lot more homework than a bookie. And the other thing that's really exciting for a punter is that a bookie has to bet on every event. So they have to put the odds up on whether it's the races at Warrnambool or the Golden Slipper or the US Open tennis. A punter only has to analyse one event, may analyse more, but can do a lot more detailed homework on that particular race and go, well, look, I think this bookie has underestimated the true chance of this team winning or this person winning or this horse winning. And that's why if you're very disciplined as a punter and you wait for the opportunity to bet, you can ultimately have an edge over the bookie.
So you mentioned, I guess they have to put a price up on every event.
Yeah.
How much do you reckon when they are pricing the event is kind of the quantitative data, so the past performance, versus the kind of intrinsic, what the bookies kind of believe in, like a qualitative?
So I think it's very hard to price a lot of events without a quantitative model, because you need to have a large amount of, you've just got so many events, and for you to actually watch every team play and every horse run and every go do the back form, and for people to watch it is very hard. You know, it's different if you're a bookie back in the day and you were just betting on Sydney racing and you were going to the races and betting on 8 races. Bookies are betting on thousands of events all the time. So they rely on a quantitative model or other bookies model, and then they price off the other bookies, build in a lot of percentage, and then adapt as the money comes.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I've always wondered kind of what percentage it was, and whether it was kind of a basically just a computer, or if it was a person, or if it was some combination of the both.
I think as time shifted, it's becoming more and more automated, and you're seeing the big syndicates, they're finding an edge, both from factor-wise, but also from data analysis.
So you've obviously moved, I guess, from the bookmaking to tipping, providing tips. Can you give us a little back on why you decided to move?
Look, the reason why is I bought back the tomwaterhouse.com brand, and on the condition I didn't go into betting for 2 years. And I thought, well, there's no school for betting, no school for bookmaking, and I was lucky growing up with my dad and my grandfather, where all we talked about was betting. As soon as I started going to the track, I'd drive them crazy all the time with question after question. And grandfather was biggest bookie in the world. My dad runs one of the biggest syndicates, and he hasn't been losing quarter betting for 40 years. So I had these two amazing geniuses in their own field of terms of bookmaking and punting. And I thought, well, if I can't be a bookie, why don't I try and see if there's interest in me sharing those lessons to punters in how to beat the bookie. And I thought, oh, I'll just do it for a period of time until I can be a bookie again. But it's turned out to be popular, and I've also enjoyed it.
Because it's one of those things, though, where if I speak to someone about it and I say he's moved from bookmaking to tipping, one of their first questions is why would he want to share the information in the first place? Why wouldn't he just keep it for himself and then just make a ton of money?
So, well, the issue that's happened is, so in 2008, 2009, I had at least 3 bookies that would bet me to win $100,000 guaranteed per bet. And to get on to win significantly more than that, because there were so many bookies, you could get set for a lot of money. What happened is the analysis, once everyone went online, the analysis of who was a winning punter and who was a losing punter was far easier to automate. So I remember the bookie that used to work next to us, he used to have a little black book, and he would mark down how certain punters went for him over a period of time. And if a punter was winning, he'd say, well, look, I don't want that business. And you go somewhere else, sort of thing. And would
like a casino type of thing.
Like that. Now the bookies have got better at automating who's actually good at getting the top price, who wins over a period of time, what percentage they win. And so they want to, like any sort of smart business person, they want to optimise how much money they can make. So they want as much money and turnover from people that will lose, and they want to limit as small as possible the people that can win. And so at the moment, the limit to back a horse on a Saturday is all the bookies have to bet you to win at least $2,000 and to win $1,000 through the week. And that's very different, even though they've still got to bet you and they still bet winning punters. If you bet with all the bookies, you're getting on to win, call it $30,000 or $40,000. The ability compared to 10, 12 years ago, where you could back things to win $300,000 or $400,000, is dramatically different. And the thought was, well, if I can share how to win and these tips with a much bigger database of clients, and as a subscription model, it's more lucrative than trying to get on with certain bookies, especially for much lower limits. And that was really the thought process around it. If it was back, well, pre the changes in internet and iPhone coming out, I'd still be an on-course bookie. I'd be betting up but times change and you got to adapt.
So obviously, I guess the limit then with how much the bookies will bet you is that kind of a follow-on effect from the punters just getting better at what they did, or being able to do more detailed homework?
I think the bookies have got better at analysing which punters they want to have unlimited sort of limits and who they have limited limits. So for a bookie still bets winning punters something, but they're like, well, I'd actually rather take a big bet from a guy that doesn't have detailed models and understand like percentage and have this edge over us. I'd like to take lots of bets from people that don't have that, and I'd like to take a limited amount from this person, which is common sense there's nothing, I'm not blaming the bookies, it's just common sense of running a business and trying to maximise your profit. But in that environment, if you're a punter and you're getting limited, well, if you want to keep building your business and keep growing, you've got to find ways to adapt. And this was one of them, in that, I thought this was a better way of still utilising information and showing how you can win punting, but more lucrative if you've got X amount of subscribers than getting on for small limits yourself.
Sure, that makes sense. I guess that makes sense. In terms of where to next and kind of the product offering that TomWaterhouse.com now offers, where would you say your edge is compared to other platforms that provide tipping knowledge or kind of best bet options, I guess?
I think the thing is obviously I stand by the tips and that it's me, like my name, and have a money back guarantee, so you can try the tips, and if you don't win over when you join, you get your money back. Obviously all the analysis and the tips are on the website, so you can go through all our bets that we've had and see how you would have gone and what the record is, and also we have the ability in our app that you can, one of the keys to winning on the punt, you've got to get the top price, is that we've got an odds comparison service where we've got 7 or 8 bookies in there all the time, so when you get the tips you can compare where the best price is and bet straight away with our tip to bet functionality. So just because our tips have historically won, it still requires a lot of work from our members to win, because you have to have the discipline to follow the tips and you have to have the discipline to get on at the best price or the best price available, and that's not easy, because you go to the races and you're like, actually Tom's only tipped 3 horses today, what am I going to do for the other 37 races? And I was with the kids and I missed the tip when it came out, and now the price has gone from $3.80 into $3.20. Well, you've got to go, well, it's not worth betting now because I've missed the odds. So you've got to have the discipline, which is very hard. Like, winning at punting is a very, very difficult job. You know, you've got to not only have do the form or have the best tips, but you've got to get on at the best price, and then you've got to have the discipline of sticking to the staking plan. Really hard. Like, even I've seen the best punter in the world that wins hundreds of millions of dollars a year. share his information with two other people, and one of them would win millions of dollars betting off his tips after he bet, and the other person lost all his money, and they were betting with the same set of tips. And it's all down to price and discipline, and that's the challenge.
So obviously you've got kind of, I guess, a semi-intimate relationship with the members of kind of the tipping database. What has been the feedback that they've provided to you in terms of their winnings, their gains, losses, etc.? Is everyone up or on the balance of things?
I think it's a broad spectrum in that you've got people that have been members with us now nearly 3 years, and there's some of them that have won a lot of money betting, and they're very disciplined. They're on it every day. They have automated tools to bet with the bookies. They see it as a mental challenge and a financial challenge that they really are into it. And then you have other people that go, well, look, I'm just going to follow one or two of your tips each week, and I'm going to stick to disciplined plan of sticking to the staking, and they also show good return. Then you have other people that go, well, look, I'm not going to get it right at the time you send it, but I want to have a few bets through the day, and I'm going to follow it, and I would have lost this much, but I'm going to lose less than that because I'm following your tips, but I'm still getting the enjoyment, but I'm not doing it in a rigid following to the exact T. And then you have other people that go, oh, I'll look at it, but I'm going to have 100 other bets and they're going to lose money because they don't have any discipline. And so, but the thing that gives me, and what stuck with us, is that the people that have joined, that have stuck with it, that they obviously must enjoy it because they're really sticky in terms of staying on as members. And that's the same like we have for our big bundle members and our platinum members, a WhatsApp chat, and it's the same people in that chat for years now. So we see them at events or when we travel, but there's a real bond and understanding of what we're trying to do. And it's been interesting being on the other side.
Sure. One of the things I like about you and the brand is the accountability that you have personally to the brand. So you're the face of the advertising, you're in the WhatsApp chat, it's always you kind of at the front. Do you feel like it's an obligation of someone who's running a business or running a particular racing business to be at the forefront, or is that kind of a personal decision you've made?
Well, two bits in that, like, I wouldn't, if the tips were no good or the service was no good, I would never put my brand to it, So at least we might have losing runs because it doesn't matter if you're the best punter in the world or whatever, you're going to have periods of loss. But if I could bet the way I could in 2008, well, I wouldn't have this business. I'd be betting myself, So obviously believe in the service, believe in following the plan, but that wasn't the reason why TomWaterhouse.com started, or I was facing the brand. It was really I was a bookmaker in Melbourne, and this online boom happened with iPhone coming out and 3G and the advertising restrictions being lifted, and there was this rush for the likes of sports betting, TAB sports bet, all these sort of URLs. And I thought, well, I always bet with like Cold Tidy, a bookie because I knew that name at the racetrack, or people bet with my dad or my grandfather, and in England it was William Hill or Victor Chandler or Paddy Power. They were all names, and so that was really the thought process. And then it's sort of lucky that I'd come from a family name that was known, and that really with social media it's become an even bigger advantage because people don't follow brands really. You follow individuals, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter. You want to know who the person is and what they're saying. You don't want some PR agency or some person that you don't even know sending out just blah tweets, and so that's really how it came from and why we've kept going with it.
Sure. You mentioned obviously your mother, your father, your grandfather, all involved in racing, bookmaking. What does, I guess, the Waterhouse name mean to you, and is it something you're kind of always conscious of carrying?
I actually never really think about it like that. I've been so lucky, obviously, to have the name in this industry, but I think even more so just lucky because I am so lucky that I've got this history of family that have on both sides done all these things, but I think more I'm lucky in that of what my parents and grandparents and broader family have given me growing up. My mum was ultra disciplined and really kept me in line, and my dad just had unlimited faith in us as kids and would back us in anything that we were trying to do, and just when you have that sort of confidence behind you, you think you can do it, even though I wasn't at all in any way some special child or something. But when your dad goes, "Oh yeah, you can do that," you're like, "Yeah, I can definitely do this," and that's that was I felt my biggest advantage. But yeah, I'm so lucky because obviously I'm leveraging off the family name and have been given a huge leg up because everything I do I wouldn't be able to do it if I've been taught by them, so sure. Yeah, that's
really good. I really respect that, and I think that's it's kind of an awesome family story as well, from my perspective anyway, because it seems like you're actually going out, you're having a crack, you're putting your name on things, you're not kind of sitting and letting everything happen in front of you. It's
funny, my mum would always say when I was a kid, she's like, "I don't care what you do, but you better be working hard. And if you're not working hard, I'm going to be so disappointed in you." And they actually don't, they don't care, but as long as you're head down, working hard, trying your best, they're happy, and that's and that's part of the fun of life. For me at least, I don't want, is having a go. Some things you do might be just absolute, "Oh, that was so stupid," or "I've done this or I've done that and that could have done that way better." But if you're not having a go, it's like you're not playing the game, And,
You mentioned obviously your grandfather. What do you think Bill would think of racing kind of today in 2021?
Well, it goes in cycles, doesn't it? And racing was had issues. It always has issues and always has great things. But then you've seen this resurgence of racing in many ways in what Peter V'landys did about getting the funding for racing. Racing's never been better funded in Australia, so that was a huge win for the industry. Racing is a huge advantage that was able to continue on through COVID. It's the bookmakers and the industry are really pushing it because it's a great betting product. So I think it's got a lot going for it, and that doesn't mean there's not always challenges. You've seen the growth of sport and the but there's still I've just, even though there's things that you go, "Well, I'm worried about in the racing industry," there's just as many things that I'm so excited about that in the racing industry. And I think he would have been, definitely was concerned with the shift or lack of money on course, but I think couldn't believe, it'd be absolutely, his mind would be blown with the growth of online. And also I think the most exciting thing for racing in Australia is this growth of product for overseas. Australia has the best racing in the world, I believe. It's just terrific, so much content, and our product is not only popular here, but it's also becoming more popular overseas, which I think is very exciting.
You mentioned racing's not without its issues. If you were in charge of racing in Australia, what do you think is the number one issue that needs to be addressed, and how would you address it?
Well, it's a big question, and I'm probably not because it's very the thing that's so tough about running racing is that you have lots of stakeholders. Do you know what I mean? You have the punters, and you have breeders, and you have the horse trainers, and you have the jockeys, and you have the government, and you have the general public, entertainment-wise. And for a racing administrator, it's just it's a real challenge, because you've got all of these people as stakeholders, and you've got to manage an outcome that they all go, yes, that's fantastic, which is basically an impossible task. It's much easier being a CEO of a corporate, and really your role for most business or many businesses, bottom line. How are you growing this business, and over the next 10 years, how can we make this much money? And that is, obviously that's a challenge of how you make the money, but it's a narrow task in that you're thinking about one stakeholder, and that's the shareholders, because they want to get dividends or share price growth. And racing is more difficult like that. So it's much easier if you said, well, what would you do for racing for the punter to be better off? And then I could maybe have in time think about a solution. But I think it's a really hard question, you know. And I think if I said, oh, you do this, I'd be talking out of my pocket in a sense, because I have a narrow stakeholder view.
You mentioned the entertainment value, and when I was mentioning to my friends and kind of my immediate circle that I was going to be interviewing you, obviously the first thing that comes up, especially I guess in my age bracket, is the advertising campaigns and the ads. And as I mentioned to you before, it's one of the things I really like about you is that you're the face and you're totally accountable for all the ads, for kind of, I guess, the branding. You have had alpacas on Christmas, you've had girls in bikinis. More recently, it seems like there has been a slight shift in your advertising. What has been the feedback to your advertising campaign so far? And, you know, do you have any regrets about it so far?
I think in terms of life, you want to try never to have regrets, you know, because even when you make a dud mistake or whatever, that's your learning experience to go on to the next. If you're like, wish I hadn't done this, you just live your life always depressed or something, you know. So I sort of think you just want to try as much thing or do as many things as possible, do your best at the time, and then crack on to the next bit. In terms of advertising, what's so interesting is that we used to spend a fortune going to focus groups, and we'd sit behind a glass wall and listen to these people talk about that they wanted. I think in every focus group, they're like, we want an app that's fast and easy. And you'll see all the bookmakers, their tagline is, our app is fast and easy. And the next one was like, we want the best odds. And it was all these sort of things, and you'd be like writing down furiously, like, this is what our ad's got to be like. And so you'd go then away with the agency and you say, these are the 6 things that all the punters really want. Now let's come up with a creative that brings in these messages, because these are the messages they want. And so you think about creative and you go back and forward, and then you'd get an ad and you'd get location, and you'd film this ad which cost a fortune to film, and then you'd finally get the ad ready, and then you play it on TV for 6 months. And you'd think, well, that definitely, I've nailed that ad because we actually found out what they want. And what I've realised is they don't tell the truth in those focus groups. Really? Yeah, they don't tell the truth. And the thing that's amazing about with social media and Facebook Ads Manager and all of these tools that you've got is that now you can create a video on your iPhone, which works better than using cameras and all this sort of stuff. You can create a video on your iPhone, do it really quickly, and you can see in real time what's working, what's getting click-throughs, what people comment on, what interest they've got, what conversion they've got to signing up or downloading the app. And that is just a game changer. And so from what we try and do is come up with things that we think are funny or interesting, put them out there, and if they work, keep iterating and doing ads that are working. And that's been really exciting to get that feedback loop so quickly. and really just try and create more stuff that resonates with our core demographic. And yeah, it's been really interesting, but also a lot of fun, because we're just, like, a lot of the time come up with like mad ideas and we're like, maybe this is funny, maybe it's not. And some things, like, we just laugh our heads on, but that's so stupid. And like, we did this ad and where I've got like this white glove and singing like Mickey, getting them to sing the Mickey Mouse song, but this, and I was like, when I'm filming, I'm like, this is the most stupid thing I've ever done. I go, I feel like such an idiot doing this. And that's been our best performing ad.
Really?
Yeah, it's just funny how you just don't know when you're filming what will work. And so look, lots more Mickey Mouse videos coming up.
Well, do you personally read the comments if you post something on Twitter?
Oh yeah, of course.
So if someone is giving you, I would say, non-constructive feedback, are you? They're
always. It's funny, the most like negative comments actually are our best comments, because no one wants to read, oh, he's such a lovely fellow, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, he made some lovely cupcakes for my, like, what. If it's vanilla and they're saying what a nice guy he is, no one's interested in that. It's like where if you have stuff that's sort of like out there and they're like, oh, can you buy, it creates. I always remember with marketing agency we used to always talk about, we've got to create water cooler moments where people at the water cooler are discussing your creative and what you're doing. And if you're not creating that where people are reacting to it, it's just going to be, there's so much stuff on and there's so much to grab your attention, it will be lost.
Well, that's good. So I assume then, obviously one of the things that all the boys want to know as well, particularly, are there going to be more fun advertising campaigns, more campaigns, I guess, with girls in bikinis as well? Because it seems like when it used to be kind of, I guess, early 2000s, even 90s, 80s, you know, when the TV got introduced, that basically almost all of the beer ads had girls in bikinis, cigarette ads had girls in bikinis, and then it's almost kind of died, and then Tom Waterhouse has brought it back. Yeah, well, I guess Richard Branson did it for years, didn't he? And like, it must have worked well for him. If those type of ads keep resonating with our members, like, we'll keep just whatever works. We'll just keep doing more of and try new things in there all the time, because you don't want it to get stale. But yeah, if just some of the things that I thought would work didn't work, and like when we have Fanta in our ads, it really works. Like. And so, I guess we're definitely going to be making a lot more ads and just trying to be funny, but also get our message across, because you can take the piss and act like an idiot, but you've also got to keep it, well, what is the product that you're trying to promote? And everything is about compare, because for us, we've got this odds comparison, odds aggregator app is that really trying to emphasise the point that why have one bookie when you can have more than one bookie, and you'll get all the benefits of having multiple bookies, and you can also choose when you get the best price. And that's the message that we ultimately want to get across. It's just getting the attention for people to go, okay, well, what is that about? No, I think that's good, and I think I really like the idea of the aggregator anyway, giving the punter more choice. I think that's, I'm not massive into gambling on the horses, but if I was, then I think that's definitely, if any time you get more options, more prices, I think more data is always good for the punter. Yeah, like it's just funny because it works in so many other industries where the main thing about that activity is not price. So when you're booking a hotel or booking an airline or insurance, any of that
stuff. The first thing you think of is probably not price with that thing. You're like, oh, I want to get to this destination, or I want to stay in this type of hotel, or I need to be covered for this. In betting, price is pretty important. So, I hope it will. Our members seem to really like it, and hopefully, it proves to be really popular. So you've obviously, as well, you've kind of, I guess, combined your wealth experience in betting and gambling, and also kind of also experience in money, I would say, and you've created kind of Tom Waterhouse Venture Capital, or Tom Waterhouse VC. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it might be something that people know you for gambling and racing, but not so much for, I guess, finance and funds management. Yeah, look, the only area I know is the gambling industry. And I've always focused my own investment in that space, and just thought, well, I thought there was a gap in the market in that you're seeing a lot of funds or banks, and they're focusing on certain types of industries, but gambling is not as broadly covered. And the area that I thought was really interesting is the area in this middle layer space. So it's very easy to analyse a company like a Crown or a Caesars or a William Hill or something like that. You can broadly, most people that cover the industry, they go, oh, well, there's a certain amount of turnover and they've got this amount of retention and they've got this gross win margin, they spend this on marketing and they spend this on other costs, and what do we think that growth rate will look like over time, and what levers can they pull? But the amount of analysts or banks or funds or whatever that actually understand that middle layer of companies that are providing services, so it might be vision services or data services or marketing tools or casino products or betting platforms. This whole middle layer of products isn't really covered, and with the growth in the US, obviously the US opening, it's like a gold rush of growth, and you've seen companies that are providing B2C, so business to consumer, like the likes of PointsBet here, the Flutter, which is FanDuel, DraftKings. They've had huge growth in valuation, and thought that it was a really interesting space. I was focusing myself, but doing it in a fund of focusing on that middle layer of companies, and really companies that provide key services to the bookmakers, but have also got growth opportunities in the US. And it's been really interesting. The funds obviously it's just a wholesale fund at the moment, and have kept it relatively small, but just using this period of time really to get funds under management experience, because the whole Australian Financial Services licence, getting that organised, getting your IMs, your trust deeds, all this sort of stuff that I'm not
the administrative stuff.
I haven't got a background in running funds. I just know this one area, and thought that I would keep it small and just focus on that for the next 3 to 5 years of running a small wholesale fund focus in this space, and just see where it takes me, and takes in terms of whether over a longer period of time, 5 years down the track, I can build it into start another fund, but build it into a much bigger fund.
So you've obviously got a couple of things happening at the one time. There's TomWaterhouse.com, you've got Tom Waterhouse VC. What do you do when you're not working? Do you have any hobbies?
I have 3 kids, so we just we go swimming and paddleboarding and rock climbing and I just love spending time with them and my wife. It's just the best. So the kids are 8, 5, and 3, and it's. Have you got kids or?
No, not as far as I'm aware.
The first 2 years, but it's hard work, isn't it? Because they're born and they're not nappy trained, and they're waking up through the night and stuff. But they're now at an age where they just are so much fun. So if I'm not at work, I'm with them. Like this morning, I was at my daughter's basketball game, and tonight after the Golden Slipper, we'll go home. We'll probably go to the beach for a bit. And I bring him into the office here on Sundays, and it's great. Yeah.
Who do you admire outside of your family?
Who do I admire? I think it's for different. I've always tried to have mentors, and no one's perfect. You never meet a perfect human, but there are bits about different people that are just so impressive. You look at them and you go, oh my gosh, this person's amazing. And I've had people that I speak to regularly because I'm like, actually, I find this incredible how you can do this or achieve this, and so I, throughout the years, obviously my family, number one in terms of who I always speak to, but different mentors. For when I took the role as CEO of William Hill here in Australia, I had a mentor for 3 or 4 years here who just was a game changer for me, because I'd never run a big company before, and had to go and present to boards and do all this sort of stuff. So to have a mentor to help me become corporate CEO was incredible. And in terms of investing in different things, as someone else that I speak to all the time, and I always just try and find different people that I look up to in a certain aspect and learn. And the amazing thing is, I've always found that people are so generous with their time and giving, especially as they get older. You know, as people get older, they're very. It's hard when people are in this sort of middle part of their work life. They're ultra busy and they're like focused on themselves. But most of the mentors that I've had have been at least one generation older than me,
I guess then, kind of following on from that, one question that what we at Carnage House like to interview people who we think have had, I guess, an unfair media portrayal, or we think are unfairly criticised by the public, or and then try and provide them, I guess, a platform where it's unedited, it's unscripted, they can kind of flesh out their ideas in a way that doesn't come out in a soundbite. Do you think that there's anyone that you know, or anyone that you've met, that you feel you know personally to be fantastic, but has a reputation that kind of, there's a big disparity between the reputation and who they actually are?
Just trying to think who I broadly know. I'd probably say my dad. My dad's like the best. Like, I could not have asked for a better dad. Just unbelievable. Like, so supportive, caring, unbelievable husband. Like, in terms of, well, my mum would say this, he really, for her career, pushed her and said, look, go and do, like, most husbands, or a lot of husbands, they're like, oh no, you stay at home, worry about this, and do. He was like, and then when they knocked her back having a trainer's license, he said, no, go and fight it. You have the skills, you should be doing it. And her dad, who was, well, he's the leading Group 1 trainer of all time, he was like, no, I don't think so, Gay. And he was a great dad to her and a great grandfather to me, and amazing man. But he was also worried, I don't think it's more a man's game. And but in the media, it's portrayed, Saint Gay, which my mum is a saint, she's amazing, and Rob, he's the baddie type thing. And I've, as a person and a dad and a husband, he's an amazing person, and that's just, I'm sure that's where a lot of people are misunderstood or not known, and maybe that also doesn't bother him, because I know from my own point of view, as long as my wife and my kids and my broader family are happy with me and love me, everything else is noise, you know. It's but yeah, it's interesting. Public perception can often be very different to what a person is.
Well, I think that might just almost wrap it. Is there any kind of closing comments you'd like to make, or, you know, is there anything that's on your mind that you feel like the Australian public should know about racing, or about you, or anything like that you kind of haven't felt like you've been able to get across, or, you know, just broadly speaking, this is kind of just a free crack at the stumps, basically?
No, I think I'm pretty, like, open on Instagram every day and posting stuff all the time, so I don't.
So if they want to reach you, if I have mates who have, you know, seen you and they've got a bad tip or they've lost their money, can they DM you and that's fine, you'll respond?
Twitter, yeah, I'll respond.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, I think that might wrap it up. Thank you so much for being with us. I think it's been fantastic, and I think it's definitely beneficial that we've been able to get you for as long as you have. So thank you for being so generous with your time.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
Thanks.